Hi, my name is Shelly, and I'm excited to share how God completely transformed my life. I grew up here in Southern California, lived most of my life in Vista. When I was 7, my mom left my sister and I with my dad, and I ended up living with my dad from the time I was 7 until 13. And by the time I was 15, at this time I had moved in with my mom for a couple years, but I had pretty much messed up my life. I had been smoking, drinking, doing drugs, got pregnant, had an abortion, ran away from home. I was depressed and suicidal and put into a hospital, and eventually given the choice to either follow my parents' rules or move out. So after I had been living with my friend and her family for about 9 months and just kind of doing my own thing, thinking that I would be happy and free, I just became more lonely and just more depressed, more suicidal. And so that was about 9 months. And then I met a guy named Chris right after I turned 16, who's now my husband. And we went out a couple nights, and on the second or third night after we went out, he asked if I wanted to go to church with him the next day. So he was kind of a new believer, but he picked me up and brought me to this church, Calvary Chapel Vista. And it's probably about 4 or 5 times that I came to the church before I raised my hand to say the sinner's prayer. Mainly because I didn't want to go to hell. And that was really the extent of what I knew, what I was doing when I raised my hand, but it was a great start. I had come to Christ in November 1987 and was still kind of doing my own thing. And in December, I became pregnant. And my first thought after finding out that I was pregnant was that I needed to get an abortion. And so I had made the arrangements to go down to a clinic in San Diego to get this abortion, and the day that I was going down there, I was running a little bit late, so I called them and asked, should I still come, should I reschedule, and they said, no, come, we'll have the doctor wait for you. So I got down to the clinic and went inside to check in, and the receptionist said, I'm sorry, the doctor's gone home for the day, you're gonna have to come back. So I didn't know if I was going to be able to get down there again. I had to get a ride down there. Chris was working full time. I came back, and when Chris got off work, I told him what happened, and he and I both kind of came to the conclusion, well, I guess maybe God doesn't want us to get an abortion, which might seem pretty obvious to most people, but it really wasn't obvious to me. I didn't know anything about God. I had only been coming to church for a couple months by this point. So by the time I was about 4.5 months pregnant, I still didn't know what I was going to do. We kind of actually tried to ignore the situation, which obviously isn't going to happen for too long. But by this point, I had moved back into my dad's house, and he didn't know that I was pregnant. And then he found out that I was pregnant, and he said immediately, you need to get an abortion. And so at that point, I knew that, oh, maybe God doesn't want me to get this abortion. But I didn't know what I was going to say to him because I had just moved back in. I didn't have anywhere else to go, and I didn't want to be kicked out. And as I was trying to think about what I was going to say to him, I remembered that when I was at church a few weeks back, there was either something in the bulletin or somebody came and shared about a place called Birthright, which is now called Birth Choice. And I remember hearing that you could go there if you, or you could send somebody there if you knew someone that had a unplanned pregnancy. And so, and you can find out about adoption and different things. So I remember thinking this as I'm trying to tell my dad I don't want to get the abortion. And so I said, oh, I heard about this place. What if I go and find out about adoption? And so he agreed that I could do that. We still didn't know after going to Birthright what we were going to do, and we didn't really seek out any other counsel, and honestly we just kind of tried to ignore the situation. I actually had kind of left it up to Chris because in my mind I felt like I was only 16, I didn't have a job, I was living at home. My parents didn't want me to keep the baby, so I figured it was really going to be his choice whether we keep the baby or place the baby for adoption. And about 2 weeks before I was due, the ladies from this church threw me a surprise baby shower. And at this point, we still didn't even know what we were doing 2 weeks prior. But they threw this baby shower, and there was probably 10 or 12 ladies that came, and I didn't know any of them hardly. I knew 3, and that was it. And that really touched my heart because I get emotional even when I think about it now. Just the fact that women that I didn't know would come and just pour their love out on me and give me gifts and make it a joyous celebration when it wasn't joyous the whole time I was pregnant. It was miserable. There were many tears, stress, fear, everything, and yet they made it a celebration. And I don't know that they'll ever know what that meant to me, but that, I think, was a turning point for me on really realizing that God loves me and that people that love God love me. And after the baby shower, we ended up deciding, I guess, we're going to keep the baby. And then the baby was born, and her name's Ashley. The baby that we didn't abort is now a mom of 5. And so when I think about how there's 6 people that are alive today because God stepped in and saved me from making another big mistake, it's just amazing to me. After having Ashley, I really didn't have the support of my family. I ended up getting married a couple months after we had her, and it was really the church. There was a few women in particular that kind of took me under their wing. They would come and pick me up and bring me to women's Bible study, and they would pick me up and let me just hang out with them during the day. And really, between coming to church and studying the Bible and women that poured into me, that's how I learned how to be a mom and a wife. And then, eventually over time, I got involved with children's ministry, and we used to have a homeschool ministry here. I was involved with that. Chris and I were the directors for 10 plus years. And now I'm involved in the Good News Club and Angel Tree, and have been involved in a few other ministries throughout the years. And Calvary Vista has really become my home, and the people here are my family. Well, coming to Christ was the best decision that I could have ever made in my life. Before Christ, I was rebellious and angry and lonely. And since then, God is everything. My favorite verse is Matthew 28:20. I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. And I think that was probably because throughout my life, whenever I would mess up or just people would get tired of me, they would just kind of dismiss me. And God never has, and He never will. And that has kept me close to Him and growing in Him. And I'm still growing in Him, learning more every day. We've been taking the skills classes that they offer here, and again, just learning the love of God and to really pour into His Word and His truth, and that is what has sustained me. Thank you for listening to my story, and I would love to talk with you more. So catch me outside, out in the courtyard.